The greater picture is looking uglier as February opens, and all of the higher term timeframes ideas that we've been looking at on this channel become just one more degree real here. Anyways, other than that, I'm going to welcome you back to the Krown Crypto channel. I had a very interesting time on Twitter yesterday where I made this post, which I thought was like obviously sarcasm. Bitcoin cannot go below $40,000, which would be about an 8% correction from the current time of that posting, because there is an ETF, and no asset with an ETF has ever experienced a correction of such magnitude. Yes, indeed, that's right. Nothing has ever gone down ever since getting an ETF, because ETF equals magic equals no more selling equals, wait a second, I swear there was a gold ETF that went down a fucking lot in the last 10 years. Among many other ones as well. Of course, this is damn sarcasm over here. Very interesting to see how much attention this post got, but for the people who got it, awesome. For the people who didn't, I'm concerned, sir. Anyways, let's just move on into the monthly statistics. So yesterday we were looking at the month of the month of January as being the 5th month in a row to close positively for Bitcoin, which it actually did, as it did close, it did close negatively. Okay, it closed negatively. Yes, in this case, this is actually just as interesting right here, as a slight negative close for the monthly does imply a couple things. So first things first, we were looking at yesterday the monthly positive closures as getting kind of above the average of what we do expect when you get consecutive positive months in a row. When we do see positive months on this run-up tab right here, we've seen an average of 3 positive months in a row before, well, I guess a red month. And in this case, we saw 1, 2, 3, 4. Last month, January, did close slightly negative, very, very slightly negative. So that did actually produce, well, our first negative closure, which we have statistics for that as well. When Bitcoin gets a negative monthly closure, then it is actually most likely to average 2 consecutive negative closures. And in fact, the rundown statistics right here are significantly less bad. Does that even make sense? Significantly less powerful than the run up. As you can see, that the 84% rank, essentially representing the 84% percentile right there, is 3 rather than 6 on the run up. So, we would be essentially looking for, whenever Bitcoin gets 1 red monthly, to then either have 2 to 3 on like a very, very high probability. So somewhere around 2 to 3 is what we do expect. We just saw technically the first month of January, so February and then March are kind of on the chopping block for high probability of downs that are at least February, closing negatively right here. And yeah, that does kind of play into the overall picture, of course. I want to bring back my notes over here. And yes, indeed, that does lead me to the next major thing that we should be aware of, which is on this chart right here. Again, the monthly closure for CME acting as a rejection of the top side of the blue 50% of historic returns range highs on a long-legged doji dildo, which is a signal of indecision and perhaps even reversal, especially on a time frame like this. Now, you're never really going to hear me talk too much about candlesticks formations on especially lower term timeframes, but on weekly and above, these things do actually hold some weight. I'll give you a couple examples of recent memory. Yeah, Bitcoin did actually top off on the current all-time high on a nice spinning top, or doji dildo, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Same thing over here on the sort of like mid-cycle high, for example. So ultimately, this is, going to be a pretty ominous signal going onwards and forwards from here. And as long as Bitcoin is now operating below the bottom, or sorry, not the bottom side, but the top side of the blue 50% of historic returns range highs, that is kind of like a ceiling for current price action. But as long as it's below, it does imply that Bitcoin's a lot more likely to see the median of this, time frame, which is all the way down here where my cursor currently is at $34,000 over some amount, a period of time. Does that play within the bounds of the monthly statistics over here, where we do see run down, kind of like 2 to 3 months on average, play something like that? Yeah, but I mean, also keep in mind, it doesn't need to also be done in literally the whole month or 2 months for that matter. It could be, a couple months down, 1 month, slightly positive, then another couple months down, something like that for a correction. But ultimately, this area right here is going to be a very, very high probability target in the coming months, as long as Bitcoin is below, again, $46,000 basically on especially a closing basis. Above $46,000, Bitcoin's bullish as fuck. Get ready for $50,000 plus, and probably onwards and forwards from there. That's where you're going to see me switch around to being very, 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 very bullish, kind of similar to the way that we've been bullish on the channel for pretty much all of 2023. But for right now, Bitcoin went up for basically a year straight. I do think that it's time for a monthly correction here, somewhere between about 2 to 3 months from now. So February, March, April, something like that, kind of coming into the halving. And again, the median on the monthly will shift around. So it's not going to be like stock steady at $34,000 for forever. It's actually technically at 33,900. It's going to shift around with each and every passing monthly closure. But for right now, it's kind of like a guideline of where I would expect this correction to come down to before, again, still long-term, likely turning back on up to the upside. I do still think that Bitcoin is long-term macro bullish, probably in the latter half of 2024. But, this first half, especially, is probably going to be a bit tumultuous, especially this first quarter. Now moving onwards from there, I should also define that, or should I define? I did think also as well the HPDRV representing volatility, continuing to see contracting volatility right here does imply that we do see, this area fill out. And again, on the monthly for the index, Bitcoin is just it's a rejection of the median here. So theoretically, I still look at worst case scenario as bottom side of the 50% of historic returns range lows, which is much further south right now. But of course, one thing before the next, and I do think that's seems a little bit out of reach as of right now. Moving on now, I do want to get into a chart that we haven't visited in quite some time. Where is it? There it is. Yep, found it. And it is the monthly time frame over here for the stochastic oscillator. We didn't actually see it turn down coming into this month's open. The new pivot is 39,300. So I'd say that for the month of February, particularly, if Bitcoin closes below 39.3, that would be the next sort of major puzzle piece, maybe amongst other things as well. That would suggest that Bitcoin probably does see down around that 34-ish thousand number, and maybe even lower than that. But that's the next big major monthly pivot right here. You can see that the monthly stochastic oscillator is in the same area that we have seen, a couple other market tops come in from the past, one of them being April of 2021. Damn it, this chart's all fucking convoluted. Let me redo this. One of them coming in from about March, April of 2021 on that first attempt above $65,000 or so. The time before that we saw cross within that region was, of course, November of 2017, and then before that we saw it in April of 2013. And these all correlate with, pretty close to the highs, if not on the highs. But you will notice that, especially on 2013 iteration and 2017 iteration over here, things did continue a little bit upwards and onwards after that. And even in 2021 as well, Bitcoin did make a new all-time high from there. So turning down is not like a death sentence for the cycle. It's more or less a corrective metric where we can expect something like this, where it comes down probably to the edge of the bullish control zone and then wedges itself into really tight momentum. And then that's, once you see that break, that's probably when all hell breaks loose, whatever the fuck. I can't even speak English, man. Been living in this fucking Finland country for too long, and I've forgotten how to actually talk because no one talks here. And if you are Finnish and you're listening to this, this is true. So you can't even argue. And you're probably not gonna say shit because you don't fucking talk anyways. Yes. So other than that, we should go back to this chart over here because it is the daily statistics for Thursday that are, as always, very interesting because Thursday is the most likely day for Bitcoin to close negatively at 37.5% of all Thursdays in Bitcoin's history closing positively. So that is certainly the lowest end right there. But the interesting thing about this is that it actually has the least bad negative return. That's not a weekend, at least, at 1.59%. In fact, I think that we've kind of already seen this move happen from the open. 1.5% to the downside is basically to where the 20 simple is, which is where Bitcoin's found its wick low for today thus far. So does Bitcoin close down around there? Perhaps yes, but it's kind of like the range to the downside versus the range to the upside. We do see 241 as the average, which would be actually another retest of this week's highs. Yeah, Tuesday highs basically, if that does play out, but basically between 43.5 to the upside versus kind of today's low at 41.8 or so. It's the range for today most likely, and we've kind of already seen the downside of that, to be fair. On top of that, I did want to come back and revisit this chart over here. Daily time frame for Bitcoin is still in the midst of putting in some hidden bearish divergence between this high that Bitcoin witnessed on the 16th of January and this potential high that Bitcoin's putting in right here. CME is already suggesting that this is pretty much valid. Yeah, and fair enough. I mean, CME is actually already plotting regular bearish divergence right there. So it's actually not even getting the hidden because that one didn't really define as a high. But ultimately, I would expect these things kind of, to play off of each other. Going back to this chart, I think this one's actually going to be a little more pertinent to the discussion, as we do see that the mean band of the Gaussian channel is coming in at what? 42,250, basically, kind of where Bitcoin's actually living a little bit below as of right now. If Bitcoin does close the day below there, that would definitely do it for me. Hidden bearish evidence confirmed. Very likely Bitcoin coming back down, minimum somewhere around $40,000, maybe a little bit lower than that to the bottom side of the Gaussian channel on the daily. So that's kind of what's at stake for today in the more near term. If Bitcoin continues to close above 42,250, it's not necessarily like a green light for green dildos. It's just, crisis averted for yet another day. But still, I do expect this particular instance over here to probably take its time. Maybe another bounce off of $40,000. Like we said earlier, going back on over here, monthly range highs, theoretically things could test all the way back up to just shy of $46,000 and still remain overall kind of bearish on the monthly. So I would be cognizant of that. So, does Bitcoin try for maybe one more bounce off this region, maybe even tag somewhere around 45 or 46, perhaps yes, and then turn down? I think that would be a lot more of a what's the word that I'm looking for? Confusing move for the market, which would, of course, people would get pretty damn bullish if Bitcoin took out this high right here. I do think, at least. But fair enough. We'll kind of, I guess, monitor this one as it goes onwards and forwards. I guess, from this perspective right here, as long as Bitcoin's basically above January lows, it's like you can't really call a breakdown to mid 30s just yet. Let's see what the daily HPDR band says. Median is actually coming in at 39,500 on CME. What about spot price action? 40,400. At that point, yeah, below there, I guess that would be probably a better expedited way of kind of judging that as to when, the real downside will emerge. Until then, I mean, Bitcoin's still kind of range bound here, and theoretically, $40,000 could very well be this post over here. Maybe it wasn't sarcasm at all. Maybe I'd be eating my words. You really have to read through some of these comments. They're fucking good. Some of them are hilarious. Some of them are very concerning. Very, very concerning. And I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this particular video. As always, I want to wish you the best of the best. We'll be back tomorrow with a live stream analysis and some fun times as I get my off day. And what else? Yeah. I forgot to say it again. Find this content valuable, please consider subscribing. Helps out the channel, which is cool. Or maybe not cool if you hate the channel, which is also good, I guess. Just trying to remain positive about it, man. And we'll sign off on that note. As always, take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.